been an amazing spring and summer. I hope your spring and summer were as eventful and fun and crazy. Maybe not quite as crazy as mine were, but I'm back into my vlog, and I hope to do it a little bit lifestyle so it's kind of fun. And I've been studying something called trailblazers. Trailblazers are people sent on a rescue mission, and people who are used also to send others on a rescue mission. They're trailblazers too. When you look into the Old Testament and you see a word in the Hebrew is shaliach, and in the Old Testament you wouldn't see it shaliach. It's actually someone who is sent. So sent on a mission with the authority of the sender. A really good example of a shaliach is Eleazar in the story of Abraham in Genesis 24. So Eleazar was basically a slave in the house of Abraham, but he was such a faithful person, and he faithfully served, and he was someone that Abraham entrusted with his entire estate, to the extent that when the time came for a wife to be taken, a wife to be found for Isaac, Abraham entrusted Eleazar with that very important task. Now, why was that so important? Because Isaac was going to be the line to the Messiah, and his wife would be part of that line to the Messiah, to Christ. So Eleazar has access to all of Abraham's wealth, and so he takes the camels that Abraham owns, and he takes some other servants with him, and he goes to this other land, and then her family welcomes Eleazar into the home just like they would have honored and welcomed Abraham, because they recognize that Eleazar is Abraham's shaliach. He is there representing Abraham. And then Rebecca is very happy. She comes with Eleazar, rides on the camels of Abraham, and goes back from this land of idolatry. And really, this was a land of darkness. It wasn't the land that God had promised. And she leaves that place of less than God's best, and she goes with the sent one back to or into her best, into her promised land, and into God's will for her life. And this is a beautiful picture of how we are sent to people who are enslaved in dark places, or people who are in bondage in any way, whether that may be people in poverty, it may be people, the person across the street that's looking for a hope or looking for a friend. And there's different ways that each one of us is sent as God's sent one, God's shaliach, God's authorized. He authorizes us. Now, let me tell you another story. We found out about this boy that had been trafficked, that had been taken from his home. He didn't have a father, and so his mother is in deep poverty. And so this person trafficked him from Nepal, took him by force, blindfolded, into India. And then they took him into the mountains, and they sold him as a slave to work in the apple fields. And in this picture, you see the man and wife that have bought him as their slave, and they have been forcing him to carry 45-pound boxes of apples up and down the mountains, 50 boxes a day sometimes. And when he couldn't carry the apples, they would slap him and abuse him. And so we found him, and just look at his face, look at the sadness and the trauma and the hopelessness in this poor boy's face. But because our native leader had the authorization behind him, we had authorized him, and also the Nepal government was authorizing him. And so he was able, then we provided all the finance he needed to hire jeeps so that he could take the long journey. In the days of Abraham, they had camels. Good, we don't have to ride camels anymore. We hired the jeeps for him to go from Nepal into India and to find this boy and to rescue him. And look at the difference in this boy's face when he knows that he's been rescued and has hope now. Our native leader Amr doesn't look so good. He's got a kind of messed up hair. He's been in the Jeep for like 5 days there at this point, but this boy has been rescued out of that horrible situation, and now he's back with his family and he's safe. But this is how God sends us, and he authorizes you. You have the authorization of the king to do great things in this world. And sometimes we are the ones that have to send others. So maybe you're the one that's going to authorize or going to equip or provide the resources for someone else that goes out there and does this thing, finds that precious treasure in dark places. But we are all a team doing it together. Go out there and be God's shaliach, be God's trailblazer.